Hey,
we're back.
We are back. Hold on, I gotta close all my windows now. There we go.
There we go.
I'm not so blue. Well, hey, Dave. Nice to see you again.
Likewise, Jared. Nice to see you too.
Thank you. So we have so many topics that people come up with, and every time we're like, oh my gosh, going into it, what do we want to talk about? What do we want to talk about? And then we open up the list, and we're like, oh, there's so much good stuff here. And so that's why we're kind of encouraging people to give us topics, to give us ideas that they want us to go over, because there is so much out there in our industry in conversations. And, we're not going to say we know all the answers to everything, but, we're going to give you a multi-op perspective, and Dave's going to give you a single op perspective in why we do certain things the way we do, or why we charge what we do, our systems, whatever it takes to help you guys expand what you're doing in your business. So a little background, Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about our business structures, so that way people can kind of get caught up as we go into the conversation of tonight's topic.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Dave Ternier, as all of you know, I'm sure. I am located in a rather small town, 2,400-ish people in middle of Manitoba. Where's Manitoba? It's kind of up above North Dakota, 2.5 hours from Minot, if anybody knows where Minot is. And my business structure is quite simply a single op. You're looking at every employee I currently have. You're looking at the best employee I have, and you're currently looking at the worst employee I have. And this is how it's always been for me. I specialize in weddings. Weddings are, I'm not sure about you, Jared, but for me, they're about 80% of annual revenue. It's pretty high when it comes to the revenue side of things.
Yep.
And I would say that I've kind of been the way I am right now, which might sound weird to say, but since 2011, 2012, that's kind of when I realized, had my eyes wide open to the possibilities that were out there, and life kind of exploded ever since. So that's kind of what I'm about.
Yeah. So I run a multi-op, and I have for numerous years now. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing, and I want you to talk about, your transition from working a full-time job going into making this a full-time position, because I think you were working full-time as a single op way before I was working full-time as a multi-op. And yeah, so I think that's kind of the interesting story, that I had been working a full-time job on top of this for years. And then finally I'm like, okay, we got to pull the trigger. We got to change some things up. And, I can look back at my books, and I can see the year that I put all eggs in one basket. And it was definitely, when I look back, it was definitely for the best. I mean, it helped our revenues, and it helped us expand where we needed to and wanted to. So you talked about 80% of yours being weddings. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how our systems looked, because I couldn't do corporate events in the middle of the week when I was working a full-time job. I couldn't do a lot of that stuff. And now we've really tackled the corporate world, and we have some other ambitions that I wouldn't be able to accomplish if I was still working a full-time job. So our goal here today is to actually help people and encourage people to look at, if you do go all in this business, can you drop your full-time job? And the only way to do that is to know the value and know the price of your services. So there's a lot of, I guess you could say there's a lot of bookkeeping knowledge that you would have to have, or there's a lot of math skills that you kind of have in place to understand how can you make this happen. Mm-hmm. So, you don't just have value because you think you can charge that much. You have to cover your costs. You have to, make a living. You have to support your family. So there's a lot of things that kind of equate into that. And I think that's going to be a really good conversation here today. So if anybody has any questions, we encourage you to put it in the comments, so that way we can reply back to those comments later on, and hopefully answer some of those questions that might come up. Or you can always reach out to Dave and myself. So
pretty easy to find. Yeah, pretty easy to find.
There's definitely some avenues. But let's talk about that. So you were doing furniture sales for the longest time.
I was for the longest time, and then moved to Manitoba, and then figured enough of DJing, so I got into the hardware business.
Okay.
So that's where my future was going to be, because I'd never swung a hammer, and then when I saw the possibilities when it came to DJing, I worked both jobs for a while, but I was able to wean back the retail side of my work, wean it back to 3/4 time and then to part time, and I did that as I saw my DJ business, going places where up until then I'd really only dreamed of, I hadn't really thought was possible. And, as I know I've told you many times, Jeremy, and maybe even this is something I've said before on the show, but I held on to that retail job until the last possible minute. I worked a lot harder than maybe the average person is willing to keep both, so that I had the mental freedom to take risks and to not have the pressure to go and sell that next client on my wedding services. So I held on. I mean, I was, I'd have to look back and see exactly, but I was probably successfully charging in the neighborhood of $2,200 a wedding-ish, maybe a bit more, before I left my part-time job. I didn't want to go all in and hope that I would be able to start booking expensive weddings. No, not a chance. I was going to make sure that worked first. And when I can say consistently charging, I mean, 60 to 80% of the inquiries coming in are booking you at those rates. Yeah. So that was probably about the point where I finally cut the cord and said, let's see if these wings I've developed are big enough to fly.
So, I think we have a lot of content here, and I'm wondering, let's do this for this show. Let's do a 2-part show. Let's do this show on basically dropping, because you haven't titled this right, correct?
Correct.
Titled this? Okay, so let's focus on leaving your full-time job and making this a full-time job. And then let's talk in our next show about pricing and how to come up with that equation to make this even possible. How's that sound?
Sure. Yeah,
all right, cool.
That works.
So hopefully if you're watching this, you're going to come back and watch part 2 and, kind of get, I don't want to say inspired, but help you maybe figure out what your equation looks like to make this show.
If we don't inspire anybody here, I'm out.
So, okay. So what were some of the key things that you saw, that you were going to be sacrificing by dropping your full-time job? What were your biggest sacrifices that you saw, or the biggest scary moments? What were the scary things?
Yeah. The scary thing was, I was going to be losing that guaranteed every 2-week paycheck. Mm-hmm. Now, sure, it wasn't a lot, but look, it doesn't take a whole lot of $200, $300 paychecks to pay for another workshop, right? That job essentially allowed me to contribute the minimum that I needed to our household, and it allowed me to funnel more revenue than most from my DJ business into workshops and performance training. So I knew that, the moment I left that retail job, one of the things I was going to have to deal with was I'm not going to have as much money now to develop myself. Well, at least I wasn't sure that I would. Let me put it that way. In the end, I did, right? Because I was able to focus and so on and so forth. But that was one of the big fears. The other fear was, the pressure that was going to now come on me, being totally responsible for writing my own paycheck and getting that money in the bank. When I meet with couple XYZ or a corporate client, who knows what, is there going to be any sense or hint of desperation in my words to them because I quote unquote need to book them, because this is now my only source of income? That fear was really real. And keeping the retail job allowed me to not have to worry about that. Yeah. If they book me, they book me. If they don't, they don't.
So I think one of the things that most of us, we kind of hit a comfort zone, is we see the income from our DJing on the weekend as bonus. That's like our bonus money that we're making on top of our other jobs.
Yeah.
And that's true. It is, but it's still a business. There's still a lot of things that you have to do during the week. So here's one of the things that was kind of a scary thing for me was, and I know this is different in Canada, we have to pay for health insurance. And for us to basically say, you know, I was paying like, oh gosh, I don't even remember. I was paying like $400 a month for full family coverage. And I mean, that's very reasonable.
Okay.
At that point, you know, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave my full-time job so I can focus on the business. We already had to have, before I could leave that job, I had to have our health insurance already figured out, and we had to start paying on another health insurance. So that way it would have took over as soon as I quit my job and I didn't have health insurance anymore.
Oh, because the $400 a month you were paying was through your job.
Yeah.
So they likely covered a cost of that, part of the cost.
Yeah. Yep. So we had a group plan. Now in our company, we have group plans available for full-time employees. So we do offer those options or those benefits after a certain amount of time or a certain time frame. Mm-hmm. But the scary thing was, I mean, our family went from $400 a month and now we're paying like $1,200 to $1,300 a month. So it's, I mean, it tripled. Yeah.
What?
It's crazy.
Huh? Yeah. Sorry. I'm just giving you the face that every Canadian watching this show right now is giving their screen.
Yeah. And that's pretty reasonable. That's a really high deductible. So the thing that I had to think of was not just my business, but I mean, how am I going to support my family?
Right.
And, you know, getting rid of the insurance, getting rid of, you know, it's funny because I was listening to this kid who got up on stage at a junior achievement event that we did. And he got up there and he said, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to quit my full-time $40 job so I can work 60 to 80 hours a week. And I'm like, you know what? That's so true, because usually it's hard to check out. And, you know, having this conversation with Sarah, who works in our business now, for the last couple of years, you know, she's even said there's times where I wish I could just punch a clock, because it's hard at the end of the day when I feel like I'm done. It's like, oh shoot, I got to get this done. And when you have skin in the game as an employee or as an owner, you can't just drop everything. You always have to be on guard to be able to take a phone call, to answer an email, to, you know, and especially in the industry that we work in, they send a request. They want to hear back in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And I mean, it's true though. So you always have to be ready. You always have to be available. But again, going to my point back of the scary thing was, you know, not having like you said, not having a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, knowing that was going to go into the bank and that was going to pay the mortgage. And then you'd have your food and all this kind of stuff. So I agree. I think those were the scary things. And then when an entrepreneur or you're doing this as a full time, it's scary to think that, gosh, what if I don't book anything this month?
Yeah.
And again, that's where I think we'll talk a little bit more about some of the financial aspects. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next show, but it isn't like you know, I got all my bonuses in June, I'm going to spend all that money. And then when November hits and weddings slow down, I guess, you know, I'm just going to have to hang tight and run with my income that I'm getting from my other job. I mean, now you have to budget. And that's, again, it's a whole different level. So does it take discipline? Absolutely.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So tell me about some of the, what were some of the biggest advantages that you saw in your transition?
Well, the advantages were that I was going to be able to provide, you know, or work my way up to an even higher level of service, because I would have more time to commit to every event that I was now a part of. My availability for meetings would greatly expand, which would likely mean I'd get a little more time with the family, because I wasn't going from one job to the self-employed job, to the other job, to the self-employed job. And yeah, I mean, those are the greatest advantages. And of course, being able to have a singular focus on what you're doing and what you're supposed to be doing brings with it many advantages too, right? Because now, you know, you can really dig into that thing you've been putting off for a while. You know, you can really work on just so many different aspects of your business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the clarity. There was certainly an excited feeling of freedom of, holy God, I'm doing this, you know. Now every year when tax time came around, was always when you went, God, who thought this was a good idea? And then, of course, I read Profit First and figured out, oh, I see. So now I don't care anymore. Tax time can come around, doesn't matter to me anymore.
Yeah.
Because of how I'm managing my finances day to day. And that's not to say I have a lot of money, for anybody wondering. No, it's just about managing. It doesn't matter if you got a lot or you got a little. It's always zero if you don't manage it properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the advantages, and it brought plenty of excitement and many new possibilities. I mean, I was able to increase my workload a lot, and yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. You know, didn't have to worry about asking the boss for time off to go to conferences or workshops, that type of stuff. That freedom was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little thing, but man, it felt good.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say some of our biggest wins were the fact that, again, now I can start doing work in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
We can start meeting with corporate clients in the middle of the week because, you know, they're not going to stick around until 5 o'clock to do an AV, you know, let's talk about our AV for a conference.
Right.
Once 5 o'clock rolls around, they're punching the clock. They went out.
Yep. Smart people. Smart people.
Yeah. The flexibility thing, I think, is definitely a very important thing for people to keep in mind. Now there's some disadvantages to that as well. You know, when you start looking at, well, I don't have to do anything today. If you're not doing anything, you're not accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great, you know, take some mental days and take some time where you can just, you know, unwind a little bit or, you know, take some time for yourself, whatever it is. Yeah. And I mean, I've done that. I've had it where it's like, you know, last Friday, wanted to hang out with the family after Thanksgiving. So I did. You know, I had that opportunity to spend time with them. They didn't have school. And so, you know, we spent time with each other, and it was great. Shoot, there was something really important that I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it was. So one of the things, you know, with Sarah being in the business now too, is our family now has that flexibility. So again, she's not punching a clock 9 to 5 or whatever it is, 8 to 5. And I'm not saying, you know, having employees in your business, that's not bad for them, because as long as you work with their schedule and, you know, they know that they understand that they have flexibility, whether they're an hourly, whether they're salary, whether they're, you know, weekend warriors, you know, as long as they understand that they can make a living off of this, then, you know, encourage them to get involved. But then how do they help you build those revenues that you need to keep your business going, your family going, and their families going? So again, the flexibility is great, but you have to be putting your workload in there. And there's times, you know, I've gotten better, but there was times I'd be up until 1 o'clock in the morning working on stuff. I'd wake up at 7, start all over again. You know, once the family went to sleep at like 9 o'clock, I would put another 4 or 5 hours in.
Right.
But that's anything. I mean, that's if you're working a full-time job and you're doing the DJing thing as a part-time. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. How have you, I don't know if you want to touch on this at all or not, but have you ever transitioned any part-time employees to full-time, and what were the scary parts that went into that, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah. And just because I know I'm going to forget this in a little bit, I want to make sure that we touch base on, you know, basically prepping yourself to make the transition from part-time to full-time as an owner. Okay. So the question of how do you know when and how to be able to bring somebody on? Again, if you know that you can cover their costs, your costs, and they can also add value to your business, then, you know, it's a good move. There's so many times I'm like, okay, can I pull the trigger on bringing on one more person? Can I, you know, if I bring this person on, do they bring enough value to exceed their salary or exceed their hourly wage and create revenues for our business? So again, there's equations that kind of go into all this stuff. And, you know, even on I had to run some errands this morning into meetings, And even in between some of my meetings, I'm like, gosh, I just feel like I'm running thin again. And, what if I hired this person on as part-time to take care of some of these things for me? Or what do I do if I bring this person on full-time to take care of this for me? So those ideas and those questions are always running through my head. Mm-hmm. And your question of, what is it like, or tell me about, bringing on a part-time into a full-time. And that's typically how we bring them into full-time. That's actually how we brought Sarah into full-time. Sarah started as part-time. And, we saw in progression that, okay, now it's time to bring her on for full-time.
What did you see that helped you make that decision?
Just the amount of work and the amount of time that I could take off of my weeks or my hourly weeks, and how valuable that was to the company. So things like, what she does is she does communications, any of the emails, she takes care of our photo booth stuff. She takes care of all of our payroll. She takes care of social media, all the stuff that I really hated to do. Okay. Yeah. It needed to be done, and, people always say, well, all the marketing is all the marketing happens in social media now. Well, if that's the case, then I need to bring someone on who can take care of my social media.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the time and I didn't want to do it. So that was a valuable asset to our company. She also takes care of, lining up kind of team management. So when we have our team get-togethers and things like that, she kind of lines up all those things. And then there's other businesses that we have that she kind of takes the role and takes care of some of those businesses as well. She takes care of all the website updates. She takes care of any of the print media, any of the business cards that need to be printed. I mean, it seems like little stuff, but when you start being able to hand that off to somebody, and then it allows me to refocus on things that I should be working on, that's where we build, and that's where the revenues actually happen. It's not the fact that she's making us money. It's the fact that she's doing things so I can go make more money.
Got it. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, let's go back to your earlier point.
What was the question again? No, I'm just kidding. So here's a couple tips that I would like to leave with everybody. And I don't know how much time we have. Probably another 10 minutes here?
Yeah.
Is that about right? Okay. So a couple things that I would highly recommend if you are looking to transition as a part-time DJ into a full-time business. The first thing I would recommend is padding your bank account. And the best way to understand this is to take Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace course.
Right.
Okay? Have we talked about that in the past?
We've touched on it, yeah.
Okay. So that was a huge game changer for us because it allowed us to eliminate debt. It allowed us to get rid of credit cards, pay off Sarah's student loans, all those things. Basically eliminate anything that you have to pay monthly. All of our vehicles, we pay up front. We don't take out car loans. We don't take out loans for any vehicles. There's just, again, when you aren't handcuffed to making a $200 payment here, a $500 payment here, a $300 payment here, you'll be amazed how much more relief you have. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we don't have credit cards. We use credit cards, but we pay them off that month. So we never get an interest charge. And we've made some pretty significant charges on our credit cards. But again, we pay them off knowing that we have the finances in our bank that we can pay them off right away. Right. So interesting thing, I was teaching a junior achievement. Do you guys have junior achievement?
Not sure what that is.
Okay. So junior achievement, basically I'm a mentor that goes into a sixth grade classroom, and we teach them how to spend properly. So it's so basically we hand out all these little cards. It's like the game of life. We hand out all these little cards. It tells them their occupation, and it tells them what their monthly net income is. So they understand what gross income is and net income is. And then from there, they go around the room, and there's like 5 different options on the board that says you have these 5 different kind of cars. Here's the monthly payments for these kind of cars. Okay. Here's how much food you need to survive. You can eat really, really well, or you can eat just enough to get by. Here's the kind of houses you can buy. So basically it helps them understand their finances by the month. So that way they don't go in saying, oh, I want a sports car that's going to cost me $800 a month. Well, your monthly income is only $1,200. So you can live in your car if you want. So again, what it does is it just teaches them that you can't spend more, you can't spend more than what you make.
Yeah.
So again, the whole Dave Ramsey thing, I think, is extremely important for any age. We're actually going to be teaching our kids at a young age because we want them to understand the value of saving and investing. And back to creating a padding in financial peace, it tells you with Dave Ramsey, it tells you to, what is it? It's like 3 months or 6 months of your salary and put that money away. Put it in a savings account.
I think isn't it 6 months of living expenses, I think.
Or 6 months.
Or is it 3 months of salary or 6 months of living expenses?
Yeah. That's a great question because that was like so long ago. I don't even remember.
Yeah. 6 months of salary would be half a year's salary. So
6 months of expenses. Okay. So put that into a savings account and then have an emergency fund. Have a cash emergency fund in your safe, wherever it is, put that away. Pay off all your debt, pay off all your student loans, pay off all of this other stuff. So again, when you are doing this, this bonus money that you're getting as a DJ company, start using that money and getting rid of those debts. Start padding your accounts. So that way, when you make that jump, and that it's a scary jump, but you know what? It's the best jump I ever made because we're doing so much more in our business. We are accomplishing so much more. We are giving jobs to people who do a great job in our company.
Yeah.
We're providing for other families now. And that's, again, it's a scary thing, but when you are able to have that sense of security, you're going to be able to do much better things. You're going to do great things.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on, I don't want people to kind of be glossing over when Jer is talking about, paying off credit card debt and that type of thing. Dave Ramsey's books makes this surprisingly straightforward. And I know there's probably a lot of eye rolls happening right now because it's easy to just push off somebody saying, oh, you just pay it off, because you might be thinking, oh, well, yeah, you got the income, you can just do that. No. That's nothing to do with that. Zero, zilch, nada. The book makes it ridiculously straightforward regardless of your income level.
Yeah.
So I cannot impress upon you enough that go and check it out. What I would also add to that maybe is, do not go full-time unless you can. If you want to see what it's like to go full-time, the money you're making from your quote-unquote day job, put it completely aside for 3 months.
Yeah.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it, and let's see if you can survive. And if you can survive, great, go put that into a performance training workshop because that'll turn you dividends. but honestly, see if you can truly live without it. Yeah. And if you're finding it's pretty tough, don't blame it on the fact that, well, it's still because I'm working the other job and I'd be making more money. You're just making excuses. You've got to be able to do without it for at least 6 months because I don't know about all of you, but I'm not getting booked all the time to play next week. Income doesn't happen that fast in our world. It doesn't. Right. It's 6, 8, 10, 12, 20 months out sometimes. Right. So that would be something else I would highly suggest. Okay, great. You want to go full time? I'll support you in that. Ditch, don't depend on your day job income for the next 2 months, and then let's see if you're good to go full time.
And we're not encouraging people just to drop their day jobs right now, especially before Christmas. Stick with it. But will you achieve more? Will you make better income when you are full time? Yes, because now you're focusing on one thing.
Probably.
You're focusing on, yeah, true. If you have the ambition, don't just. Gosh, no.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, again, it's okay to let go of a full-time job to go take on this passion. But yeah, you do have to have the drive. You have to wake up every morning knowing that you're going to achieve something. You just can't take 5 days off during the week and just work on the weekends now.
Right.
Now you have to start looking at how can I gain revenues? How can I be more involved in my community? That's a really important thing. And that's one thing. I actually have an American Cancer meeting right after this. So again, what I did is I got involved with the American Cancer Society in Sioux Falls. And it's allowed me to work with them on some of their events and their galas. but it's allowed me to connect with other people, other professionals. And now I get to do work with some of those people who are on other boards and other committees. So again, get involved in your community. Don't just look at them as a way to gain connections, but give back to your community. That is, to me, that's such an important thing, to get involved in your community, give back to the community. Don't be afraid to donate a couple things here and there, because you know what, there's people in a much bigger need than what you might be. And big time. Anytime you can give back is extremely important.
Yeah, word of mouth. Word of mouth.
Yep.
Get involved in those types of things because it'll greatly increase your word of mouth. Yeah.
So next show, we're going to talk about how to kind of create your price structure, how to look at your financial plan and what your expenses are, what, you know, some things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing this full time. And, you know, how you can, again, take things to the next level, or maybe you have to cut some certain things back to make that level work. So it should be a good show next week. I'm looking forward, or next time. It should be good. Likewise.
Thanks for watching, everybody. My name is Dave Ternier from Manitoba, Canada.
Jeremy Brech, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.